When I first tried Vipassana, I didn't think it was wrong, but I thought it was too simple, too easy to really give the benefits, or to really give me what I was looking for at that point in my life. Right? There was no chanting, there was no gods, there was no huge, humongous spiritual things and aspirations and all of these things. And so it just kind of felt a little too simple. So I went exploring. After my first Vipassana course, I explored a couple other practices. One was called Kirtan, and it is Indian traditional spiritual path of using devotion in order to become one with God, right? Yoga basically means to become one with God or to become one with the universe. And Kirtan comes from the path of devotion, right? So there's many different yogas, many different ways to become one with God, one with reality, whatever you want to call it. And Kirtan is in the tradition of bhakti. Bhakti means devotion, worship, love for God, all that kind of stuff. And the main practice was chanting God's names and music, and it's back and forth calling. There's like a singer, or like there's the person leading the kirtan, and then they will chant God's name in a certain order, and then the person practicing or the audience will respond back, and it's just back and forth. And then I also tried Qawwali, which is another form of devotional practice, and it's all about God. And that one's more as a practitioner, you're listening to a band singing to God and sending prayers up. And so both of these I tried because it just sounded more up my alley of what I was looking for at that time. Is I wanted to know God, right? I wanted to know, how was I made? Who made me? And how is the being that made me? I wanted to, I had a hypothesis that by studying this creation, I can understand and know the Creator. But in the end, after exploring all of these, the path that I was looking for and the very thing that I was looking for was right in front of my face this whole time. And that was Vipassana, right? So I didn't do much research before my first 10-day course. Wow, this table's really shaking a lot. I didn't do much research before my first 10-day course. My best friend at that time, back in 2016, 9 years ago, that is actually, time flies, told me about Vipassana. He said, hey, look, there's a free 10-day meditation. Do you want to go? And I said, hell yeah. At that time, I was looking for a meditation retreat, but they all cost thousands of dollars, at least the one I was looking up. And I had given it up because I was a young, early 20s, even if 20. And then my friend told me, hey, there's this free 10-day meditation course. And I just signed up and I went. Now, I was no stranger to meditation up until that point. When I was younger, in middle school, I found Anapana. I didn't know it was called Anapana at that time. I just, was looking up how to study myself, and online I read an article or a blog post that said, focus on your nostrils and just focus on the breath coming in and out, and you will understand your mind and you'll start to gain wisdom. And I was like, yep, I'm sold. So I had been doing Anapana since middle school. So up until that point, maybe 8-9 years, that I was doing Anapana on and off. And even in that time, I think when I first started doing Anapana in middle school, maybe in middle school or maybe like freshman year, I followed a body scan meditation on YouTube. But it left me really scared because I couldn't actually feel my body. Like I could kind of feel the vague outline of, like, let's say my arm, but like I couldn't feel inside my body on like a clear level, and it like freaked me out. So I said, yo, this body scanning, I'm gonna leave aside, and I'm just gonna do Anapana because I can clearly feel my breath. I close my eyes, I can feel the details and I can feel the entirety of it, even if my mind gets distracted and whatnot. But in principle, I could feel my breath a lot more than like this empty body. So I came into this first course with good energy. As a young kid, I was just very spiritual and into like, I need to know what this is. I was telling all my friends about meditation, Anapana. And so I came in open, I came in curious, and I came in hopeful. And I came in knowing that some serious work was going to be done, because even up until that point, I just knew how good at least Anapana was. I knew how useful it was. I knew how it made me feel. I knew the insights that it gave me. So I had an idea. And so how amazing was it that the first 3 days of the 10-day course is all Anapana. Now, I had not done Anapana to the level of, 12, 13, 14 hours a day. But, I was doing 20, 30-minute chunks at that time when I was meditating. And so I did have some experience, and it wasn't like totally brand new to me. And but that experience just, I think, allowed me to go so deep and to already know kind of what to expect from an experiential perspective. And so I think I was able to just really go in so deep. And the simplicity of it all just like surprised me, right? It wasn't talking about high philosophical stuff during the discourses. There was a little bits and nuggets here and there, but really not too much. And it was like, oh my goodness, you're spending, 95% of your time just focusing on your breath or your physical sensations. And then 1 hour a day, you're, listening to a discourse. So it was just really about observing your mind. And at that time, even this was filling that role of like, hey, I want to study the creation to know the creator. But like that was a great way to study the creation, but it just didn't feel quite connected enough to the creator for me, right? It just didn't feel spiritual enough. It didn't feel, I was looking for these big expectations. And so, after my first 10-day course, I maybe kept up the practice for like, I don't know, a couple weeks, maybe a month, and then I stopped, right? So I then finally was like, okay, let me keep exploring. Let me just keep looking. So I looked up more, just doing research online. Isn't the internet amazing? You can just find so many things. So I just looked up, how to get closer to God, how to really understand God and more God focused. And I eventually found kirtan as a practice. I think I was looking up something like, meditation practice for God and whatnot. And then this one made sense, right? Kirtan it's all about God. It's literally you, God, and you're trying to build that relationship. You're using devotion. You're using this feeling of devotion, the emotion of devotion in order to bridge that gap or build that relationship with God. And it was actually very beautiful at that time. It was something I was looking for because it was very intoxicating. It's very easy to feel good with kirtan, right? One of the challenges with Vipassana when you leave the 10-day course is on a daily basis, it's hard to make your mind so concentrated that you go into a very ecstatic state. Like on a 10-day course, by day 6, 7, 8, oh my, I'm blissed out, I'm just like flying in bliss. But when it's like back in real life on a day-to-day basis, it's so hard to like get my mind concentrated. Whereas with kirtan, because it's chanting, it's very easy to just stay focused when you're verbalizing and you're vocalizing and you're chanting and there's the emotions. And even when you're not chanting, you're listening to, like at that time, I was listening to Krishna Das. Krishna Das is an amazing kirtan lead. I don't know what they're called, but Krishna Das would chant, then you chant back, and then he chants, and it's like this back and forth. So when I'm not chanting, I'm listening to Krishna Das. And it's like, 30 seconds of him chanting, 30 seconds of you chanting. So it does go, back and forth relatively quickly. And that just keeps the focus super sharp. And that is so intoxicating. And of course, the emotions, the devotion that's brought up just keeps you so enticed. And it just made it very easy to feel connected to the spiritual practice. And that stimulation of just the chanting and the listening just made it very easy to get lost in the practice, which is good. And Qawwali is the same. Qawwali, you have this stimulant, which is the band singing and praying to God and, sharing these spiritual stories. It's the same, right? The stimulation, the constant, your senses are just being bombarded. The devotion's high, the emotions are high. It's very easy to just really get lost in it, which is awesome, which is amazing. But one thing I started to notice, right, is across time, something started to feel off as I was doing Qawwali and Kirtan. And I didn't do them at the same time, right? So I did Kirtan first. I did Kirtan for many months, hours a day. And that's the other thing is when I'm at home, Kirtan and Qawwali, they're very easy to do for hours a day because of the things that I just mentioned with easy focus, the ecstasies there, intoxications there, all of that good stuff. But with Vipassana, it's very hard on a day-to-day basis to want to even do the 1 hour sitting in the morning and the evening, let alone 5 hours a day, right? It just wasn't something that Vipassana made it easy to do outside of the 10-day course. So at that time, I was doing Kirtan for a long time, hours a day for months on end. And then I went to Bhakti Fest, which is a yoga festival. There's so many things to learn. There's so many bands to listen to, many courses, many different kinds of meditations and breathing techniques and yoga sessions and just it's just basically a 3-day yoga festival with everything that you can imagine. So it was there, up until then I was just doing Kirtan. It was there that I found Qawwali, that I found Fanafi Allah. And when I heard them singing on stage their Qawwali, there was just an instant click. I was just dancing like crazy for the whole time they were performing. I had my eyes closed. I just went to a different dimension. And I remember going after the festival, I just could not stop listening to Fanafi Allah. That was the name of the band, and they're still active. I just remember I was on the airplane. It's a 2-hour ride. Bhakti Fest was at Joshua Tree in California. So it was a 2-hour ride to SeaTac Airport about. And I just remember the whole time I was listening to Fanafi Allah on Spotify, and I was just dancing on the plane the whole time. And the guy next to me, at the end of the flight, when we were getting up to board, he was like, "I can't believe you were dancing that whole time." Obviously, I wasn't obnoxious in dancing in their space, but I was just bobbing and weaving and just having a good time. So Qawwali, once I switched, I stopped doing Kirtan and I just fully switched to Qawwali. So I was doing them one at a time. And then I also was doing Qawwali hours on end. I was to the level that at work, on my 10 to 15 minute breaks, I would just be doing Qawwali. I would be dancing. I would literally be in a chair, listening to Qawwali and dancing. My coworkers, I think at some point, were just this guy's on some stuff. But I wasn't high. I wasn't doing drugs, nothing. It was I was sober. I was clean, but that's how intoxicating it was. And I had no problems with overusing my phone or anything. It was just oh, I got home after work, bam, Qawwali. I woke up in the morning, I would go to yoga, I would take care of some other stuff, Qawwali, 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 or when it was Kirtan, Kirtan, Kirtan. It really overtook my life, which is good, which got me super deep into the practice. But even then, something felt off. And I would notice it, one time, I was out eating with my family. I think it was probably Eid or something, which is a celebration for Muslims. It was Eid and we were out enjoying, we always go out to have some food and spend some time together. And I remember just really craving Qawwali, being I can't wait for this to end so that I can go back to my practice. Right? Or I would just notice at work, it's I can't wait for this to end so I can go back to my practice. Or I'm doing chores. I can't wait for this to end so I can go back to my practice, right? So there was like this division between my practice and life. And I was starting to kind of be like, I can't wait for life to end. Not like, oh, I want to die or anything, but more like I was being impatient with life because I just wanted to go back into that blissful state, into being devotional to God, and kind of like not necessarily ignore my responsibilities, but there was just some aversion to my worldly responsibilities. And that's when it was like, okay, this feels off. This feels a little off, something's not right. Now, meanwhile, while all this is going on, I was still going to a 10-day course every year. At that time, my Vipassana practice was not consistent. It wasn't, every day, an hour in the morning, an hour in the evening. It was just, I would go to a 10-day course. I would keep my practice for a short time after, a month, 2 maybe, and then lose it and, do other stuff. But what I kept noticing was just how integrated Vipassana felt, how connected it felt to life, right? And that connection is really what brought me back and what made me realize, wow, Vipassana is the path for me, because it's the path that integrates the spiritual with the real world, right? So if I'm making this video and I'm like craving Vipassana, you know what I can do? I can just focus on a body part, right? I can feel my right thigh, and I could just feel those sensations, and I can just keep talking. If you wanted to do Vipassana right now, you could, while you're listening to this video, like you could feel your left foot, like start scanning your left foot or something. You can do that, and you can integrate it with this without it taking away from it, right? And so while the practice of Kirtan and Qawwali was beautiful, there was that separation of the practice and life. So then once I kept going to Vipassana, I started to see the depth of Vipassana, because even though Vipassana is simple, it's easy to understand, it's breath or sensation or metta, when you're doing your metta meditation, it does have the depth that's needed. It is a bit slower, I will admit, right? It doesn't, like for instance, if I did an hour of chanting right now, my mind would be concentrated for the whole hour. It doesn't matter what my day was like, if I'm stressed, if I'm this, if I'm that, right? Instant. With Vipassana, it's actually, for me, when I'm in real life, it's almost impossible to get 1 hour of uninterrupted mind, right? I can get a 1 hour of meditation of Vipassana in, but to get an uninterrupted hour of focus, nearly impossible. On a course, by day 4, 5, 6, very easy to get an hour of uninterrupted practice for me. So when I say, it's faster, that's what I mean. And because you can have 1 hour of uninterrupted chanting, Kirtan or Qawwali on just a snap of a finger. And not that it's that easy, but it's just a lot easier with verbalization in order to like concentrate the mind. That's like, something that Goenka says in the discourses. So Vipassana is a bit slower, and it is a bit, I don't want to say clunkier, but I think that's the beauty of Vipassana actually. It's because it's taking your whole life as fuel for practice, right? So let's say even this thing that I'm just talking about now, where it's harder to get an uninterrupted hour of concentrated mind in Vipassana when I'm in real life. The things that distract me, the emotions and the thoughts and the experiences, memories, whatever it is that does pop up, in Vipassana, it is fuel. It is fuel for wisdom into the nature of reality, into the nature of that emotion, into the nature of that thought. Like, what do I actually feel about this? Oh, here's the multi-layered experience of my emotional body that I'm feeling as I'm having this memory. Here's how my shoulders are reacting to this, this with tension or ease or moderate tension. And so life becomes fuel for Vipassana. The distractions become fuel for Vipassana. And this is the integration that really made me choose Vipassana and be like, okay, this is what I'm looking for. Because there is no failing. Like, let's say in Kirtan, right? Kirtan and Qawwali, the goal is using devotion to connect to God, right? And it's hard to, let's say it's a little harder, or maybe I just didn't get advanced enough. But you're either doing that or you're doing something else, right? You're either being devoted to God or you're being distracted. Whereas in Vipassana, it's kind of both on that level of, yes, you're either, focused and observing arising and passing away of phenomenon in your body, or you're distracted, but that distraction is causing a ripple effect in the observation of the phenomenon arising and passing away in your existence in this universe. And so it's kind of like there's a closer connection between them and you can use them together. So this integration really just made me say, you know what, this could be it. And it really transformed the mind from within, right? So instead of relying on chanting or relying on listening to music in order to change you and get you into a state, you become empowered at any moment to be able to tap in, to be able to tap into the bliss within. And that's the other beauty, right? It's like if I'm at work and I'm inside a meeting and I'm kind of feeling anxious or I'm stressed and I'm just freaking done with the meeting, I can at any point with my eyes open and listening, just tune into my body, right? Like right now, you could tune right into your body and start to feel subtle sensations, like right here, who knows? And that will start to give you benefits right away, right? So that is the beauty of Vipassana. Another level is you can just take it everywhere and it gives you full independence, right? It gives you yourself the power to control when you want to feel good. You want to feel good, whatever it might be, just tune in. You don't have to stop. If I was in that meeting and I wanted, and Kirtan was my main practice, what am I going to do? Start chanting? Even if I wasn't chanting with my mouth, but I started chanting inside my head, guess what? I can't hear anything now, right? Or I'm half chanting, half listening, it's still not going to work, right? It's either I'm going to listen or I'm going to chant in my mind, right? It's just like, now you're stuck to be like, okay, I need the environment to be quiet and then I can chant in my head or I can chant out loud. And then it disturbs reality a little bit more. So now, and then I also realized that Vipassana does have that goal of helping me understand my creator, right? By studying the fabric of my existence, right? By studying these phenomena of sensations that arise and pass away in the body and in the mind, I am tapping into the way that this structure, this thing has been designed. And by tapping into that design framework, I'm seeing the hand of the designer, right? I'm seeing the intelligence which is orchestrating this existence. And by tapping into the intelligence that's orchestrating this existence, I'm tapping into something even deeper. So I ultimately learned that Vipassana also gives me that connection to really come to know my creator a little more. So Vipassana is one thread that connects the spiritual life, the mental life, the physical life, the emotional life, the real life, the external life, the social life, all the lives you can think of, like everything that you live and do, it's like this thread that just connects them all. And that is very beautiful to me. And that is why I chose Vipassana and why I said, you know what? This is the path that I'm going to marry, right? This is the spiritual practice that I am going to stick to for the rest of my life. And I did that through this whole journey. So if you're exploring like me, or if you were in a place where, Vipassana doesn't feel like enough, I do actually encourage you to go try other things. There's things much more than Vipassana, Qawwali, and Kirtan. But if you're like, hey, I want to see what Kirtan is like, go explore that or do your own research and just see. Even Goenka says, in the beginning, right, just go dig, go explore, go see what's out there. There's paths that work. Vipassana, as taught by S.N. Goenka, is not the only way. There's many other ways. But then once you find a suitable one, then stick to that one and go with that one. For me, that happened to be with Vipassana, right? I would say if you have done Vipassana and you have explored, and even Vipassana doesn't feel like enough, don't be afraid. Don't underestimate the power of simplicity. Just because Vipassana is simple does not mean that the depth is not there. It just takes a bit more hard work than other paths, and it's a bit longer, but it is thorough. It is very, very thorough, and it connects everything in life. And if you want to know the creator, right? Goenka might not say, hey, this is a path that, you get to know the creator, and, it doesn't really talk about God and stuff. But if you think about it, we are creation. You could say reality created us. And Dhamma, right, is studying how reality has created us and the laws that govern our creation, right? And so it is studying the laws that govern us. It is studying the intelligence that has created us and has made us who we are. And by gaining wisdom, by doing this practice, we are gaining wisdom into our creation, our existence, and the truth beyond that which is the cause of us being the way that we are. So keep sitting if you are a meditator. If you've done your 10-day course and you haven't, committed to a daily practice, please do so. It is very powerful. You deserve it. You deserve Vipassana. Awesome. Thank you so much. Take care.